billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And welcome to Talking Points by Ahlul Bayt TV in conjunction with KSIMC Birmingham and Birmingham Abbasi Youth Network. We're here with Sheikh Noor Muhammad, the resident alim of the Birmingham community in the UK, and we are discussing topical issues within our communities, issues that need to be discussed, issues facing different demographics within our community, things that we need to go home, absorb, take notice of, and hopefully come up with solutions for. And inshallah, we're now going to be discussing the concept of hijab, social hijab, more so on social media. Social media, for those who are not too familiar with the concept, is a new era, perhaps a post-2010 sort of concept where people online can engage with each other through different platforms such as Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, so on and so forth, make new friends, speak to new people, and have a virtual relationship with one another. So the topic we want to discuss is social media as a concept. Does it distract us from our lives, but more so, is it a detrimental aspect to our lives when it comes to the issue of hijab, for example? When we make new friends online, we're talking about gender interaction online. Is it wrong for me to add a friend I know, a female sister I know on social media, someone who I, for example, work with in the madrasa, or someone who's in my university class, or someone who is, let's say, my distant relative or a family friend? Is it wrong for me to add them, but more so to engage with them in conversation? I think just for the awareness of those who are not too familiar with social media, for the youth, it is a scary world, and it's a scary sort of environment. It's something where people are in their own world, secluded from real life. They rely on their reputation, on their virtual lifestyle, to give them self-fulfillment, to give them some sort of, a satisfaction with the way they're living. More so, people make relationships. A lot of, I have many friends who, for example, have found boyfriends or girlfriends on social media, or who have, talking very bluntly, have gone to meet someone of the opposite gender through meeting them on social media. Sometimes I think youth might overlook the fact that social media is actual hijab, not just your mind and a virtual environment. Liking photos of sisters if you're a brother, and brothers if you're a sister. And I think it's something we overlook, and I know that everyone in this certain age group is familiar with this, and we all have our opinions on it. But A, is it an issue? B, is it something we need to be conscious of when it comes to hijab? And C, what are possible solutions if it is an issue, if we establish it for it to be an issue? So we will take questions from the floor, inshallah. There will be a roaming mic. We'll start with a very short introduction by the Sheikh.
No, I think, Alhamdulillah, Brother Ahmed, you've given the introduction. No doubt we are in this era of information and technology, whereby the world is moving very, very fast, which they refer to as global village. But as you all know, this pace of development that the world is experiencing and witnessing comes with package and loss of package. It's not just only glory, it has its own side effects. And of course, one of it is this important discussion, hijab on social media. So therefore, we'll allow you first to comment and discuss, and then I've got some point which I want to put across.
I think we want to look at more, is social media abused, as in the sense, do we abuse the tool of social media, which can be used for a positive tool, absolutely, as a platform to learn and grow more. We'll start with a question from Sister Zara.
The only reason it sometimes is a little blurry when it comes to social media, whether it's necessary, is when it comes to hijab. So we're taught, okay, Islam is the religion for all people, whether they are Christian, it's a religion for all people. The Quran is a book for all times. And in our religion, in our faith, we're given certain guidelines in terms of hijab. So, for example, just touching on a few for women, in terms of like perfume, the way we dress, the way we walk, the way even like if our shoes are making noise, certain things. We're given so many guidelines on what is acceptable, what is not acceptable. And I think it gets blurry on social media because it is very new. It's very new. It's very different to perhaps socializing in the past. Yeah. So there isn't a book or a guideline, okay, on particular social media, posting a picture like this is okay, writing a post like this is okay, this is not okay. I think sometimes it gets blurry, especially when some things are completely public. You know, like, so once something is there, it is there forever. Whether you change yourself, whether you don't, whether we try and take things off, they are there permanently. And I think sometimes it is blurry only because it's very new for us. We are learning as we go, and I think that's why it's difficult to sort of put it into whether social media is necessary or not, because, yeah, social media has its not so great things in terms of whether it's, especially in terms of hate, with anti-Islamic hate, or even just hate against women or communities. But then it also has its positives. It's achieved so many incredible things. We are streaming online, that's social media, it's on YouTube, posting, advertising this event, it's on Instagram, it's on Twitter, it's on Facebook, it's on everything. And I think sometimes we get so wound up about what's bad about something that we forget the good stuff about it too.
Yeah. So I'd like to throw the question on to Brother Ali Jafar, who recently led a workshop in the local university on social media for the youth of the community, and I'd like to know what you think.
I think that the world is very dynamic, and society is very dynamic in that it's ever changing. Population has gone through so many stages since the days of Prophet Adam, and putting that into perspective, if you look at social media, it's only come about in the last decade. There have been hundreds of thousands of years of human civilization before that. There's been 1,300, 1,400 years of Islam before social media came. So we got used to this idea of hijab that was around before social media. Social media came and it hit really fast. It developed really fast and people took up to it really fast. But because the world is dynamic, we also need to be dynamic, and we also need to see how we can adapt Islam to the things that are coming up in the world. So how can we now adapt hijab on social media? Because social media is not something that we can overlook. It's not something that we can neglect and say, you know what, that's a different life from the life that we live in the physical world.
Do you think there's guidelines or there's enough guidance for our age group when it comes to social media and hijab? Is there awareness from our teachers and our scholars, and B, do we implement it?
I don't think there is, and there's one more thing that looking at madrasa syllabus.
Yeah.
For years, hijab has been taught in a certain way about certain situations and certain things, but we haven't fully managed to incorporate the changing world into that. We haven't been able to teach about social media in madrasa, even though these kids, half of these kids, when you turn your back to write something on the whiteboard, they're on Facebook or something like that.
Yeah.
So, and we do it at university too. But it's not something that has been discussed in our classrooms. It's not something that we are given the tools to deal with in our institutions. With other things we are given, with hijab such as talking hijab or know, shaking hands. We're already taught these at our madrasa before we're sent out into the world. So we should be able to do the same thing with social media as well.
Do we have any other comments or questions I'd like to mention from the sisters, perhaps? Anything?
Yeah, I work with marriage mediation, and I think that social media is to blame a lot, because often we worry about what people think about us on Facebook rather than how we are at home. Because, you know, I could be really dressed up in that just so that people can see me how I look, but then when my husband comes home, I'm not dressed up. So I think social media has a very big part to play, you know, during these marriage breakups. And I think very small marriages are breaking up, you know, big time now. And we really need to think about this seriously.
Even with people who are looking to get married, that there's a lot of consciousness about what's on their personal profiles?
Definitely. Yes, I think all these likes and things, you know, I'm not in for it at all. And I have a young daughter, and I have to be very careful.
I think, Sheikh, just touching on this point, because this is a very interesting point. For someone who is looking, let's say, to get married, they are...
Muslim uncle here, man. Matchmaking team, man.
Alhamdulillah. There must be so many things to consider. I mean, firstly, people would say, well, social media might speed up that relationship, as in with me, myself and a girl. I mean, I would understand firstly who they are, what they look like, what their interests are, who their friends are, where they've been, where they live, so on and so forth. And I'd know that information instantly. I know a lot of brothers who, for example, if you say, okay, there's such and such person who may be interested in you, the first thing you do is type their name on Facebook. And I think this is a common thing, right, amongst youth, that if you hear a name, the first thing you'll do is search, okay, what are they putting up? Who are they associating themselves with? How do they present themselves? Are they, even things like, are they swearing on social media? Have they got photos? I mean, I know it's a big thing, hijab, the way they dress on social media for brothers and sisters. But also at the same time, people would say, well, I don't want to hide myself on social media. I should be able to be the real me. Why should I have to portray an image which is not myself? What are your thoughts on that?
You see, the question of social media has been a locus of contention for quite some time now. Not only within Muslims, even within non-Muslim communities and scholars. No doubt, it has its advantages, and all of us are benefiting from it, alhamdulillah. Streaming, so many programs you have through social media. People register online for our programs, Lectures get uploaded within a short space of time, And it has also a lot of disadvantages. We need to be able to distinguish between the generation of our fathers and our generation. I want to just enter into this discussion by understanding these two generations. Our forefathers, our mothers, their generation they used to call Jilu Ittisal. It's a generation of meeting a person to establish a relationship with the person or friendship. So like Muslim uncle, Bakir uncle, for instance, Shaida auntie, Shinaza auntie, and all our mothers here. During their time, when they were to make a friendship with somebody, they would go and meet the person. Hence, it lasts. And today, if you would meet somebody from Uganda, it would be like they've just met today. The bond is still there. Our time, they call it Jilu Tawasul. It's a generation of established relationship, not in person. Hence, you see, our relationship doesn't last today. You just, if you want to make a research, you can make your own research. Today's relationship don't last. It's for certain benefit. After that benefit is over. But our mothers, their relationship, I know whenever I go to Ghana, I meet my mom, and we drive, we go around, she meets a friend, she says, oh, Allahu Akbar, they hug her so much. Can you see the anger we have today? There is no love. People just pretend they're happy. People are not happy. Youngsters, they pretend they're happy. When they go back home, they can't sleep. Social media is good, but at the same time, it has its side. The example you mentioned, marriage. If you compare the rate of divorce during the time of our mothers and today, no room for comparison. Today, the rate of divorce is crazy. Social media contribute to that. Because you see, psychologically, social media moves you to post something and later on you regret. Sometimes you see how many things people post. These are very confidential matters about somebody's life. And all of a sudden you wake up, the first thing, because they ask you what is in your mind. And you want the world to know what is in your mind. So the best form of relationship is to meet the person, get to know the person very well. Most of these things that have been social media, I know of a marriage which were conducted through social media, and it is good. And I know many which happened through social media and it did not last even for 6 months. Because the person now, they got to know each other a month after they got married, they said, no, I made a big mistake. Because I didn't know. So it has its advantage, it has disadvantage. And the question of hijab, really, which Islam is talking about, Today you find people will post certain photos and everybody will go to like. And we are only worried about the ticks, the likes. After every 5 minutes, I check how many likes are there. Who told you some of these likes are genuine? We get carried away. So today we measure the success of a person by the number of the likes. It's a dream world. Wake up. We need social media, but you have to be careful. I give an example. People hardly pray. But if you look at the amount of hours they spend on social media in a day, it's crazy. It's crazy. So Islam definitely has not come up with something to say social media, but there are speakers who have touched on these issues during Muharram Majalis and Safar Majalis. But definitely the hijab on social media is what you post, how you portray yourself on social media. It's very important. This is where the hijab comes in. You don't just post anything for the sake of posting, because you want your friends to laugh and like. And you don't just post yourself and portray yourself with any kind of posture. There must be barrier and boundary. But if you don't put that boundary and barrier, then you know what is the problem.
Absolutely.
You know what's the problem?
Yeah.
Your children, they will grow. And people will start pointing fingers to them. I've seen an elderly person who posted something wrong because he was angry with his wife. And today his entire community are against him. And when he went to court, they use that against him. Be careful of what you post. You don't know who is watching and who is recording. Tomorrow you will have legal battles and you will not have a way to escape. Don't think that what you post gets deleted and erased. It stays there permanent. And it can be retrieved within a short space of time. So know what you say, know what you post. You don't know what you're going to become tomorrow. You can post something very funny, and tomorrow you are vying for presidency or prime minister, and they will all take this thing against you. So the question of the hijab on social media,
it's a big question.
We discuss a big question.
I want to throw the topic back into the crowd, particularly for the youth. Whether we all have confidence in sharing our personal opinion is one question, but what do you think about adding someone of the opposite gender on social media? Firstly, is it done? Secondly, is it wrong? And thirdly, why? I mean, there's brothers who message sisters and sisters who message brothers.
Right.
And I'm going to be blunt about it, because that's the reality of it. And I'm not sure if perhaps the elders in the community are conscious of it, because it's a new phase. It's something that's just come in the last few years. There are youth who find that their reputation is built on social media. Their friendships are made, and if they do something wrong on social media, their friendships will break. But particularly when it comes to hijab, I want to hear the reality. Do you agree with me when I say that people maybe abuse it, or there is an obscure line? So if I was to add a sister on social media, is it wrong for me? And there'll be differing opinions. Just your input, especially from youth. Perhaps Brother Irfan at the back has something he'd like to share.
Give him the mic, give Uncle the mic.
Oh, this question. Yeah.
The point I wanted to raise, which has been completely forgotten or not mentioned, is hijab for men.
Yeah.
Men have also hijab.
True.
Okay, they have to look down
True.
and not stare at women. And the women have to be careful how they dress up.
Absolutely.
Okay, not to be attractive to their husbands and not to the masses. The other thing is about the segregation. You know, the women and the men are segregated at this center, but when they go to the university, there is no segregation. They meet each other, and although I can distinguish them to be Muslim by the scarf that they wear, they call it hijab. 99% of them are very decent, very respectful, but there's one person, the way they mingle with boys and all that, it's ridiculous.
Awesome. Thank you for that. I think that's something to think about. Do we have any more questions or
There
points?
is you have a brother
Brother Irfan,
Brother Irfan.
what's your opinion? Do you think it's something we need to discuss, at least in the community? Can you stand up for us if that's okay?
Yeah, definitely, this is very important, the point you raised, okay, and I think, number one, to start off with, okay, we should have such forums more often, okay, because there's too many challenges we're facing, and often we don't get that platform where we can actually express those problems, and yeah, that's it. I have nothing to say on social media.
So it's something we need to look into more.
Definitely.
Do you feel that there is guidance religiously? So in the sense, okay, we know that there should be observation of hijab, social hijab. But where do we draw the line knowing what's right and what's wrong? Because I think when I speak to my friends, that's something we're unsure of. Should I be able to message this girl if I have pure intentions, let's say? Or should I be able to add this person if I know them from, a family friend, or I met them at an event somewhere? Or do you think we have that sort of advice, guidance within our communities? Or is it something?
I don't think we do, okay, and I feel that everything at the end of the day depends on your intention. If you've got good intentions, then I think you should do it, okay? And if you have ulterior motives, you shouldn't do this.
So, do you have any comments, Sheikh?
Yeah, but let's hear from them and then I will conclude.
Any sisters have any points?
The context is very important to consider, because sometimes it's not just about something more ulterior. Sometimes it's as superficial as it sounds.
Yeah.
Just to have that other friend to almost reach out to. So, for example, when you're talking about the youth groups and like at university, and you've got the ABSOCs, sometimes you're only friending a person so that you're able to reach them. Because if you don't want to interact, if you don't want to exchange numbers, social media is great, because instead of saying, okay, let me send you this post or whatever as a forward, instead, let me invite you to the group. And in order to do that, you do need to be friends. Yeah. Sometimes it's not as intense or as extravagant as it sounds. It's as superficial as it is. Just to get them as a friend and to reach them, so that you're advertising events or spreading news, and also seeing what other people have to post. Sometimes people have articles to share. Maybe you post stuff that you'd like to share. And I think, again, intention is also very important, and the context. So those go hand in hand. And I think it's up to you to decide whether something is acceptable for you or not. And that's different for everybody.
So, any closing remarks?
Yeah, I think, as Brother Irfan mentioned, this is a very important discussion that we need to dedicate maybe an hour or more to examine it in full, to hear different views and your experiences on using social media. Yes, there is no clear guidance from our religious scholars specifically on social media. But you as a person, I'm definitely sure, when you start to do something on social media, your conscience will tell you this is wrong. Today, most of the wrongs are known, and most of the right things are known. Gray areas are very, very few, really, to tell you the truth. The question of accepting friendship, it depends who you are and why do you accept that friendship. It is for what purpose? And in fact, right from the word go, if you are on a social media, like I was mentioning yesterday in my khutbah, how do you become a purposeful personality? What's the purpose of being on social media? You need to have a motive. What's your motive? You want to fit in, or what? So your motive will lead you and guide you as to the sort of friendship you accept and you reject. Like I'm on social media, I've got my motive and my purpose. It's because I want to reach out to people about Islam and nothing else. Okay? So I accept Muslims, non-Muslims, male, female, as friends. You want to be social media. You want to just socialize. If it is just to socialize, then you know you have a limit.
Absolutely.
It's the same thing like the way I'm socializing with you. There is no any difference here. I'm socializing, but I know I have my limits on the way I socialize with her and the way I socialize with you.
Yeah.
No, if you're on social media for your education or academic related issues, then you know the sort of friends you want to be on board with. So therefore, it has to go with your motive, with your purpose, and with your needs. But today, really, it is getting out of hand. Really, it's getting some people, as she mentioned, some post for the sake of posting. And you dissect, you realize there is nothing. The person is just having free wireless, and he's just posting. And we, as Muslims, we are told everything as adab, discipline. And you have to go by the discipline so that we don't waste our time. But I will encourage, inshallah, Brother Ahmed, Brother Kazim, and our brothers and sisters, inshallah, in Bain, if we can organize more of these forums, especially on social media, so that we can do a lot of homework and be able to dissect it in depth, inshallah, to have a clear-cut direction on how to go about it.
Inshallah, yeah, it's definitely something that's needed. I think we need a stronger and a more in-depth conversation on social media, its uses, and perhaps how we can moderate and monitor how we're using this as a platform to engage with everyone else in our community. Thank you again for your contributions, brothers and sisters, to this discussion. It's been an absolute pleasure to discuss this with you. You've been watching Talking Point on Ahlul Bayt TV, and I thank you for your time. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.